So, if this is a video about cannolis, what are we doing in a dairy barn in Stockertown? Well, Elby and I have come down here today to get a gallon of milk. Hey girl. We're going to get a gallon of milk and we're going to show you how to make fresh ricotta cheese for the filling for the cannoli. Now, we can talk about that and about ingredients. The reason we go through that effort is that it doesn't matter if you're making cannolis or any food preparation whatsoever. The most important thing in food preparation is having quality ingredients. And that's what we want to talk about today. Today we're going to go up to the farm store, get a gallon of milk, and we're going to go home and have an instruction for making the ricotta. Now, with that in mind, the Italians have an expression that you might want to learn if you're going to learn how to make the cannolis. And it goes, non fa bello vino con uva cattive. What does that mean? You can't make good wine with bad grapes. So we're going to get the best ingredients we can. And these ladies, aren't they beautiful? Now, you may not want to take them to the prom, but on the other hand, they're going to get us the best gallon of milk possible to make this ricotta cheese. Actually, if you lived in the West End, you could take them to the prom, but that's okay. That's another story altogether. Okay? Aren't you beautiful? You're so beautiful. Okay, let's go up the store. Let's buy some milk. This is Klein's Dairy Store. We were just down in the barn. They happen to make the best pistachio ice cream in the world. They have a bunch of other flavors, but inside of that store that I'm shooting right now, you can buy your milk, you can buy ice cream, and they have a bunch of other products, but it's a magnificent place. It really is. We're back in the kitchen here at home and we're ready to start our video, but we have my assistants with me. We have Joni, who's a mixed breed, and we have Jessie, who's a beagle. And the only advice I'll give about dogs is never get a beagle, because as you can see, they're not useful. They're just loud, and they basically just get in the way of everything. So we will get these two out of the kitchen and we can start our filming. Hey Jess, come on, you gotta go. You gotta go. Get out of here. Joni, get out of here. Now we can start talking about cannolis. Cannolis come to us from Sicily, as does ricotta cheese. Now, I want to be clear about the ricotta we're making today. We're making a fresh ricotta. But the origins of ricotta aren't the way that we're making it today. The original ricotta is made from other cheeses, from provolone, from mozzarella, from the whey, from more complicated cheeses. And when I say complicated, I mean cheeses that are started with rennet and they separate the curd, and then there's the whey. The original ricotta was made from the whey from those cheeses, because even though you're separating it, there's still something left in that whey. The word ricotta means recooked in Italian. So what they're doing is taking the whey, adding an acid to it, and removing whatever's left. Okay, that being said, we're making fresh ricotta. And we're making fresh ricotta because obviously I don't have whey from provolone or mozzarella or anything else, but that doesn't mean it's a lesser product. Actually, I prefer it because when you make ricotta in this manner, you're really going to taste the freshness of the milk. It's a really beautiful product. So, what I have in front of me is the very basic things that you're going to need to make the ricotta. I have a stainless steel pot. You do not need a lid. What you do need is a substantial base to it. I have red wine vinegar. I have a coffee filter. And I have a perforated pan. Now this comes from the restaurant industry. You may not have one of these, but you can use a colander. As long as you can have something that you can either put coffee filter or cheesecloth or something to drain the cheese, you'll be fine. Okay, Sicily. The cannolis made in Sicily are a little different than what we're making today. The cannolis in Sicily are fried in lard, which gives them a beautiful flavor. And also, the ricotta that the Sicilians prefer is made from sheep's milk. which gives it another unique flavor. So a lot of the procedures are the same, but when people talk to you about my grandmother's cannoli or the cannoli that I had here or there, and they would say how great they are, well, they're right. What made them great? The ingredients and the technique. Now, in this country, when you tell someone that you're going to fry something in lard, they shy away because they think they're going to have a heart attack after they eat one cannoli. Well, you have a choice. You can eat something and enjoy it, or eat something other than that. I just want to put that out there in case the word lard scares you, but we'll be frying our cannolis in vegetable oil, so no worries there. Okay, so let's see. What else do we need to talk about before we do this? That would be about it. Elle, we're going to go to the range, and I'm going to show them the procedure to make the ricotta cheese. Okay, to start to make the ricotta, take your pot, put a little bit of water in the bottom, and just swish it around like that. And what we're doing, it has kind of a prophylactic effect when you're making the cheese. It doesn't allow the milk to stick to the bottom of the pan when we initiate the heat. So just swish your water around, pour the water out, take your gallon of milk. Now, when making cheese, we're making a fresh ricotta, and we were at the farm, you witnessed that, and this is probably the best gallon of milk in the state of Pennsylvania. If you don't have access to that, you can use a gallon of milk from the supermarket, and the procedure would work the same. Because in cheese making, if you're going to make different types of cheeses and you want to use milk from the supermarket, let's say you want to make mozzarella, there's other things, tricks. You're going to have to add sodium chloride. You're going to have to adjust the pH on the cheese. With ricotta cheese, you can use an ordinary gallon of milk and get good cheese from that. However, this is the best way to do it. Okay, so we have our milk in the pot. Next step would be to add the red wine vinegar. You want 4 tablespoons, tablespoon per quart. So if you're going to make a small batch, that's the only thing you have to remember is 1 tablespoon per quart. You take the vinegar, you mix it in, and we're going to put the heat on it. Now I'll talk about heat. Heat we can categorize into 3 different types: low, medium, and high, if that simplifies it for you. What you see there is a low flame. That's a low heat. That's a high heat. When you're making your cheese, you're going to dial it in to nice medium heat. If you're going to err on either side, go lower, because high heat is not desirable. Medium heat is what we're looking for. What we're looking for temperature-wise is 190 degrees. The first few times you make it, you might want to use a thermometer. Because when I was cooking, I would make this every day. It becomes, you can just look at it and tell what's going on. When we get to the point of 190, I'm going to show you what you need to look for as far as when it's time to turn the heat off. I have a flat wooden spoon. You do not have to stir the ricotta constantly, but every once in a while, you just want to check the bottom of the pan, and don't move the spoon aggressively, just very slowly touch it, just to make sure that we're not sticking to the bottom of the pan. And we're going to leave the spoon out. We're going to continue to let this cook, if you will. And when we get close to the point of when we're going to turn the heat off, we're going to focus in on what I look for when it's time to turn the heat off. Okay? Okay, if you are going to use a thermometer, my genius engineer Elvie has showed me if you put the spoon over the top of the pot, you can take your thermometer and set it there. If you are going to set the thermometer, set it to the side of the pot, because that's where the higher temperatures are going to be. And you can see as of now we're at 125 degrees. If you look at the milk, there's really no indication yet that the cheese has started to form. What we look for is the side of the pot And what we're looking for is clarity in the whey. And what I'll do, and I'll demonstrate, is I'll pull a little bit away with the spoon, and you're going to see the curds starting to form, but the middle of the pot isn't going to tell you very much. It's going to be the side of the pot. And what we're looking for is a clear liquid, meaning the curds have separated. All right, we're very, very close right now. We're probably at 185 degrees. Now, you'll notice I'm pulling it away from the side of the pot, and you can see the clarity happening in the whey, and you can see the curds starting to form. Actually, it's time to turn this off. Now, what's happened here is the curds have floated to the top. And in cooking, I'm going to turn the flame off. In cooking, we call this part of it the raft. So if you watch the spoon and I go to the side of the pot and I pull back, you can see the clarity in the whey, and you can see a lot of particles of whey, or curd, excuse me, that's floating. An important part of making the ricotta is, after you turn off the heat, to simply let this thing sit for at least a half an hour. And what's happening, you can't see inside the pot, you can't see under the raft, but it's a very violent environment in there right now, and you have all these little things floating around. What's going to happen is they're going to gravitate and attach themselves to the raft from the bottom. If I were to pull this cheese out of the pot right now, the yield would not be good at all. I don't think maybe I'd get a pound. By letting it sit there, we're allowing all those little particles to attach themselves, so when we remove it later, we should have about 1.5 pounds of ricotta cheese. So you need a little patience. The most important thing is turning it off at the right time. And the right time is when you can pull the spoon away from the side of the pot, you can see a clear liquid, you can see the raft form. If you watch my spoon, and I take the spoon, I can bounce it almost, okay? I can almost bounce that cheese. You can see the indentation that I made with the spoon. If I were to remove this now, low yield, not that good of a result. We're going to come back in about a half an hour. We're going to remove it, put it in the filter, and we'll have our cheese for the cannolis that we're going to put together tomorrow. Because with ricotta, you really want to make that cheese a day ahead of time. You're learning how to do this to make cannolis. This cheese makes a wonderful Italian cheesecake. You can use it in your lasagna recipes. You can use it in pasta dishes. The one difference, if you're using this in your lasagna recipe, and I know your lasagna recipe calls for ricotta, you're going to add eggs to the ricotta that you've been using, because the ricotta that you've been using comes from the supermarket, and what the producers of that cheese like to do is sell you water. Very high water content in store-bought ricotta. They all come in 15-ounce containers. When you're in the supermarket, it would be interesting. Maybe there's 5 or 6 different brands. The store-produced brand, the ShopRites, the Weisses, and all that, those are actually the best store-bought ricottas, because when you read the label, the only thing it says on it is milk and red wine vinegar and maybe salt. That's it. The other ones have a bunch of stabilizers, some chemicals for preservatives, and so on. Interestingly enough, those are the ones with the Italian flags on them and all the Italian names. Simply marketing, doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the cheese. I'm just mentioning this because if you're going to use the fresh homemade ricotta for your recipes, you won't need the eggs. It's going to be a much drier cheese, creamier flavor, the whole thing. Okay, so that being said, let's let this sit about a half hour. We'll come back and take our cheese out. It's time to remove the cheese, put it into the filter, and you need an implement similar to this. I mean, you could use one of these, you could use one of these. What we're gonna do is work from the side of the pot, pull the cheese towards the middle, lift up and put it onto the filter. You'll notice it's been sitting here long enough where there's not a lot of activity left in the pot. You don't see particles floating around. Most of the cheese that I'm able to get out of this milk has risen to the top. And I'm just going to be careful and take as much of it out at a time as I can. And then we'll look at the whey. Now, in the bakery, when Elvie and I worked together, Elvie would use the whey to make bread. And one of the nice things about whey is it has enzymes in it that actually act as a preservative. So that's one thing you could do with your whey. In Italy, of course, they use it to feed the pigs that in turn are made into prosciutto di Parma, and they claim that the whey from those cheeses is what gives that beautiful ham its unique flavor. Okay, there we are. So this, we're gonna let it drain a day. We're gonna cover it. Now, there will be times when I might wanna put some weight on it, but I think at this point, I'm just gonna let it drain. It's gonna be really nice tomorrow. Okay, we talked about ingredients, quality ingredients, and what are quality ingredients? Well, I have an example other than ricotta cheese that I'd like to show you because it's that time of year here at the Delato household. This is a head of garlic. This is what a head of garlic is supposed to look like. Elvie grows about 250 head of these a year, and if you examine it, you'll notice that the cloves in this head of garlic are about the size of my thumb. In this head of garlic, in Elvie's garden, there's many times when there will only be 4 cloves per head. In this particular head, there's 6, but they're all nice size, beautiful. This is I believe, a hard-necked German garlic. And the reason it's so beautiful is because the last 20 years, Elvie has been reserving the best heads of garlic and using it as seed for the next year. When we talk about garlic, this is what I think of. When you go to the supermarket and you look at that garlic, well, let's talk about that. You take up a head of garlic from the supermarket and you crush it to try to get a clove. Maybe you'll get 2 cloves and then you get 20 little slivers of things wrapped in paper that by the time you get them out aren't very useful. I get spoiled. I am spoiled. I know what a tomato tastes like because Elvie grows tomatoes. If you've only been shopping in supermarkets, you've been conditioned to think that a tomato tastes like cardboard and it's red. Growing your own produce or getting it at the farmer's market makes a huge difference in cooking. But I think I showed you this head of garlic because I just love to show off what Elvie's capable of doing in that garden. Okay? So, we'll continue this tomorrow when we make our cannoli shells. And hopefully Jesse can contribute more than he did today. All right? See you tomorrow. Okay, we're ready to put together the cannoli dough. And it's in the evening now. And the reason we're doing it tonight is because we want to make our cannolis tomorrow. And the cannoli dough really should be made like the ricotta one day ahead of time. All right, that being said, I've made a lot of pastry. Cannoli dough is a very different dough. It's unusual, but it's kind of fun, and you'll see that as we go through this. What I have on the table here is the mise en place, the dried mise en place. I have all-purpose flour, cinnamon, cocoa powder, salt, and sugar. What you'd want to do is put all the dry ingredients in a bowl together. And mix them up with your hand. And then we're going to run it through a sifter and sift all these dry ingredients together. Now, cannoli dough, you're going to make it in 2 stages. We're going to put the dough together and rest it on the table. And it goes through a real transformation, because when we initially make this dough, cannoli dough has to be one of the god-awful, ugliest doughs in the world when you first put it together. And it's all wrinkled and gnarly, and it's not going to be very appealing, but we're going to let that rest on the counter for close to an hour, and then we're going to work the dough, make it nice and smooth and satiny, and it's you know, going to go from completely ugly to a really beautiful dough. Okay, we're over at the KitchenAid mixer, and what I have, the attachment I have is the hook. I have my dry ingredients, and I'm just going to put the dry ingredients in the bowl. What I have in the bowl here are my wet ingredients. I have marsala, olive oil, and red wine vinegar. I've mixed them together in this bowl. We're just going to pour that in there. We're not going to knead this dough, we're just going to gather it. And gathering is different than kneading. Kneading is developing the gluten and the protein. Gathering is just making it into one cohesive piece of dough. Okay, important ingredients: marsala, traditional in Sicilian pastry, comes from that part of the world. The red wine vinegar is important because when you look at a cannoli and you see those crater-like pocks in it, that's from the vinegar. And if you forget your vinegar or don't use the vinegar, you're just going to get a flat, crispy cannoli, but it's not going to have those craters in it, which is part of the appeal of making a cannoli. And the olive oil, I just use a pure olive oil. You don't need to go with the extra virgin. Avoid the pomace. Pure olive oil is fine. Okay, so we'll add the liquid, put the hook on it, and gather it together. Once we gather it, we're going to bring it over to the table, work it a little bit, and cover it with plastic and just let it rest. And I'd like you to see it because I wasn't kidding. It's pretty ugly. All right, I think I can manage this. I'm going to turn the machine off, and we'll take it over to the table and work with it a little bit. What you might want to have on hand is a rubber scraper so it could scrape the bowl. This is the scraper I was referring to. It's flexible, and if you notice the shape, it goes to the contours of the bowl. So what we'll do now is take this dough over to the table, and I'm going to work with it a little bit. But what I want to do is make sure I get all my ingredients out. And if you could just take note, that bowl's pretty clean.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we take the palm of our hand and just gather the dough. Get all those crumbs. And you can see it kind of has the consistency of a very loose Play-Doh. But if you focus in on the dough, it looks like some kind of weird skin condition. You know, you've got all kinds of weird spots on it, and it's just not smooth. But we don't want to work with this anymore. What we want to do is just lay it out, cover it with plastic, and in about an hour, I'm going to show you how to finish this dough. Okay, we're halfway through the process of the dough, and I just wanted to talk about cannolis a little bit in terms of how they fit into Italian culture. The ricotta cheese that I spoke about originally was made from the whey of other cheeses, which, if you study Italian culture and Italian food, that's a very typical habit of how Italians approach food preparation and how they handle things, meaning that they use absolutely everything until it's completely exhausted, which is what the original ricotta, that was the purpose of it. We're not going to throw this away, we're going to make something else out of it. And a couple small examples of that in Italian food, one would be grappa, if you're familiar with grappa. In the north, they make beautiful wine, but when they're done pressing the wine, they take the seeds, the skins, the vines, essentially all the garbage, repress it, distill it, and make it into the beverage we know as grappa, which essentially is jet fuel. Now, grappa, it's alcohol. And they're able to market it because they take their bottles and they make beautiful paintings on the side of the bottle. I mean, why would you buy jet fuel? You're going to want something more than that. Another example would be their olive oil. You know, when you look at Italian olive oil, you have extra virgin, you have pure, you have all the way down to pumice. They take that olive and they use it completely. Now, it's very exquisite at the high levels in terms of flavor and price with the extra virgin. And as you work your way down to pumice oil, which is used with heat extraction and some chemicals, and the only thing they'll use the pumice oil for is frying. When you understand that, it's complete and total utilization of all their food. And they're not done yet, because with the pits, they can make rosary beads. That's part of Italian culture. Using everything, but using it in the proper context. You're not going to make a fine dressing out of pumice oil. You're going to fry with it. That's what they do. And I just thought I'd point that out since we're into cannolis and Italian food, but just to give you the difference between thinking in the Italian way and thinking in the American way, which, not to be negative, but we have an awful lot of waste. And we're not as good as utilizing everything. Okay, we're going to come back here in an hour. I'm going to show you how to finish this dough. Okay, we're ready to finish the cannoli dough for today. Elvie, if you'll focus in on the dough, I just want you to notice that it's gotten quite loose sitting here for about an hour. It's still ugly as hell, but it's a little looser. And what you want to do is dust it a little bit. And we're going to roll it. And we're going to fold it. And we're going to do that. Now, what I have on the KitchenAid, I've set up a sheeter. Now, I use it for convenience. You know, they've been making cannolis since the 9th century, so obviously you don't need a sheeter. You could do this process with a rolling pin. But I just want to demonstrate why I use the sheeter, because it expedites the dough to get it ready sooner. And Elle, if we're going to go over to the KitchenAid, you can watch me work the dough.
This is a pasta roller.
It's a pasta roller. And what you want to do is roll it and then fold it. We're going to do this about 10 times. And if you look at the dough, it's changed already. It's still a little dimpled. But as we continue to roll it through the pasta sheeter, you're going to notice it's going to have a nice, smoother consistency to it. Okay. We'll fold that in. It got a little sticky, so what I want to do is take it back on the table and dust it and roll it. You want to keep it well dusted so that it doesn't stick to the pins on the pasta machine. Now, Elle, if you focus in on that dough, you can see how it's changed already. It's not quite as smooth as I want it, so I'm going to roll it a couple more times. And I'm always folding it in on itself. Rolling it out. I think I only have maybe 2 more times on the sheeter and we're good. Then we could lay it down and observe it. There you are. That's kind of what we're looking for. Fold it in on itself. And I think one more time, and we'll be ready to put this thing to bed for the night. here we are. I turn the machine off, fold it in on itself again, bring it back to the table, dust it, and roll it. You can see it has resistance to it now, but if you look at the dough, it's very smooth. Has a very smooth consistency to it, which is exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so what I'm going to do, that's what I want to see in the cannoli dough before I refrigerate it. Very much different from when we initially put it down on the table. So this will relax in the cooler overnight. Tomorrow we will roll it out, cut our circles, and make our cannoli shells. Okay? Good enough. We'll see you in the morning. Good morning. It's time to make cannolis. Yesterday we made our dough, we made our ricotta cheese. Today I'm going to put together the filling, fry the shells, stuff them, and Elby's going to go give them to the neighbors and let everyone enjoy some cannolis. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put together the filling. What I have laid out here is the mise en place for the filling. This is the fresh ricotta cheese that we made yesterday. And I'm going to pick up a piece of it, and you'll notice you can't do this with store-bought ricotta because it's too moist. This cheese generally is crumblier, a little drier. You can see how that works. I have cinnamon, pure vanilla, heavy cream. This is a lemon that I peeled and cut very fine, or brunoise, the French would say, and 10x sugar. Those are all the ingredients in this particular filling. Now, filling ricotta for cannolis, if you speak with Italians, the one thing about Italians is they do not agree on anything. So everyone's recipe is going to be a little different. And I'm sure your recipe, after you do this, will be a little different. I've seen dry candied fruit, chocolate chips, dried cherries, whatever. Not important. The important thing is we're getting the basics down of how to make a cannoli. And we're also using really good ingredients. So what I have here is a KitchenAid, a food processor. And what I'm going to do is take the ricotta and place it in there. It's just such beautiful cheese. And just add everything all at once and blend it. Basically, this is a cup and a half of 10x sugar. Some people like it sweeter. Elvie likes it not as sweet. She likes to taste the milk. That would be up to you as far as how you make your own cannolis, but a good starting point is a cup and a half. That's like a compromise. It's sweet, but it's not too sweet. Okay? The recipe calls for, let me look at my recipe. Recipe calls for a teaspoon of vanilla and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And of course I have out the tablespoon because I love vanilla, but I'll just throw in a teaspoon of vanilla. And you're gonna have to learn how to do this because if you have a teaspoon, it doesn't fit into your spice container. What?
You have a half teaspoon measure.
Oh, do I? Thank you, Obi. I just learned something. Usually I just throw it in there. See what you get watching videos? You learn stuff. Okay, there's my cinnamon. There's my lemon. And 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Now, if you look at a bunch of recipes for cannoli filling, you're not going to see any heavy cream used because the ricotta generally is so moist that it's pipeable. This cheese is drier and richer and more flavorful. So in order to make it able to pipe into the shell, I use a little heavy cream. Okay, so we're just going to blend it till it's smooth. if you want to look in there. I could run this without the... No, it's not going to splatter, don't worry. There's your filling for your cannolis. Okay, so we're gonna end the filling portion here, head over to the cutting board. I'm going to show you how to roll out the dough and process it. Okay, we're going to roll out our dough now and fry our cannolis. And what I want to bring your attention to are my cannoli tubes, which happen to be copper, 3/4 inch copper tubes that are cut into 4-inch lengths that I've drilled a little hole here at the end of them. I'm also sending all this information out to my lawyer, Yvonne Lyon, in Monterey, California, and she's going to take all the patenting requirements for this for me. So thank you, Yvonne, for doing that. You can buy cannoli tubes on the internet, and cannoli tubes are a little different because they're tapered on the end, and you're going to see why they're tapered when we fry outside in a few minutes. But the origins of the cannoli and where it gets its name from is the sugar cane. The stalk is what they would wrap the dough around and fry it, and they called it a cannoli because it's from the sugar cane. This is not sugar, this is copper, but it works for me. And anyone that knows me knows that I like to make things, okay? So what we have here is our pasta roller setup. Now, not everyone has one of those, and you can make it with a rolling pin. I like this method because I'm very accurate with it and very consistent. And when you see how thin this dough has to be, I'm not saying you can't do it with the rolling pin, it's just a little bit more of a challenge, just so you know that, okay? So, this is the dough that we made yesterday. What I'm going to do is cut it into 4 pieces and put 3 of them on the side here. The recipe, when I make a recipe, I try to make it so that the 1 gallon of milk will yield 24 cannolis. So when I made the dough recipe, I tried to get it as close to 24 cannolis as I could. I've gotten as many as 32, depends how you handle the dough. But when you make this dough, rest assured, you're gonna have enough dough to fill enough from the 1 gallon of milk. Okay, so we're gonna take the dough, we're gonna dust it, and we're gonna initially roll it out so that it'll be able to go through the sheeter. Now, the sheeter, I'm sorry, I keep calling it a sheeter because I was a baker and that's what we called them, but it's most people would refer to it as a pasta roller. It has different settings on it. The final roll on this is going to be on number 6. Now, with technique, I will tell you this, if you roll it out on number 5, you're not going to have the same cannoli. The dough is going to be a little thicker. Elvie noticed it immediately. I was making them one time and she says, "These are different, Michael. They're not as good." And I'm thinking, what the hell? But I looked at the machine and sure enough, that one setting on the roller makes a huge difference, okay? So if you come to the machine with me, I'm going to start it off on number 1 and put it on number 3. Now I want you to look at this dough, how smooth it is, almost silky as compared to when we first took it out of the mixing bowl yesterday. Huge difference, but that's one of the things that makes cannoli dough fun. Okay, I'm on number 3, but because I know the dough's a little sticky, I'm not going to go to number 6 without having dusted it. Okay, so we're going to come back, and I think I'm going to go right to number 6. We'll see how that works out. And here it comes. It's super thin. So notice what I do with my hand. I put the back end of my hand, and I'm going to bring it back over to the cutting board and lay it out. Now that looked very simple, and it is very simple. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be the part that you're going to screw up because handling the doughs is just part of experience. And experience is essential in anything that you do. A good friend of mine, Dennis Carrick, sang a song, and the lyrics to that song was, "Experience teaches you best." And Denny, you were spot on. Denny's not with us anymore, but whenever I'm doing stuff like this, I think about Denny. because it's my experience with this dough that makes it excellent. Okay, so we have the dough. Elvie, if you want to focus on this, you can almost see through it. That's how thin it is. Really thin. Turn this machine off. I have a circle cutter that, whoops, sorry. I'm gonna wash my circle cutter because I dropped it on the floor and I'm on camera, right? That's what you did. Sorry, El. This circle is 3 inches wide. We're gonna come over, and when you cut it, you press down hard and make sure you make that circular motion. Because if you don't, well, you'll see. You're gonna have a hard time getting the scraps off of it. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 cannolis. Now, the scrap is not scrap. There are some doughs in the world of pastry where you can't use scrap for the same thing that you do, such as biscuits and so forth. The scrap for the cannoli, I'm just going to put it back together like this. That can be re-rolled with no bad effects. So I'm just going to take that scrap, put it in a little ball, put it on the side. If need be later, I can roll it again. All right, here's the fun part. And this is where technique comes into play. I have an egg that's been beaten in a ball. I'm going to put it in close proximity to the pan, and these are in close proximity to the egg. Now the technique that you use is you hold the cannoli tube in your hand like that, and you take the dough and you just flop it over the top of the tube. Now when you do that, you're going to turn the tube until one end is facing you, put a little bit of that egg on there, pull the rest of the dough around, and pat it on there. Done. All right, I'm going to do this a few times so you can watch. Now, a good technique is taking your dough scraper, because to try to pick these up off the cutting board, sometimes you might run into a little issue with that. So what we do, this has been freed, as I like to say, with the dough scraper. I've placed it over the top of the tube. I've rotated it until that part is facing me. I put a little egg wash on there. I pull the remainder of the dough over the top, and I gently press the dough on there. You don't have to gorilla it. It's going to be fine. Just do that and put it over here. All right. Again, we'll do one more, and then we can go out there and we'll fry all of them. So I'm picking up the cannoli dough, resting it on top of the tube. Okay. I'm rotating it to where you can see the edge of the dough, putting a little egg wash on it, turning it, and doing that. Okay? If this is the first time you're going to do this, it is going to be a little awkward, but with practice, you're going to be fine. Okay? So I'll just do the rest of these. We'll go outside and fry. Okay, we're on the back porch here frying our cannolis. The temperature on the oil at this moment is 300, and we started the video because we start frying at 350, and I'm going to show you the technique that you use to fry the cannoli and also not burn yourself. So we've talked about the culture of the cannoli being from Sicily and so forth. I also like to point out in southern Italy, a lot of the desserts, a lot of the preparations use frying techniques. Well, the reason for that, sometimes weather has a lot to do with what type of foods people eat. And when you look at the cuisines throughout the world, whenever you get to a southern climate, generally they're going to fry some more stuff. And why is that? Well, on a 100-degree day, do you really want to turn your oven on and bake? do you really want to have a lot of heat created in your kitchen? Like today, we're outside, because if I was frying these in the kitchen, it'd be a little intense. In our country, in New Orleans, they have the beignet, which is basically a donut, but it's fried. And what's the advantage of frying in hot weather is you put your oil on the stove, you turn it on, it comes to temperature, you fry, you turn it off. Quick, easy, and doesn't make you work too hard either. Okay, so we're almost at 350. I start frying at 350 because I have a deep fryer downstairs. I don't use it because I know you don't have one. So I'm going to show you the technique for cooking it on your range top. What you need is a metal skewer, such as this one. This is my little pig skewer. I have ducks, I have chickens, I have all kinds of stuff, but I like this one because I get my thumb on there. The technique you use is you take the skewer and you put it through the tube, and as to not burn yourself, take the skewer, place it against the side of the pot, and place your cannoli in. Okay? There's no splatter, and it begins to fry. This process is very quick. I'm going to do 2 of them at a time. I'm going to leave it in there for maybe 30 seconds, and I'm just going to turn it like that, using the skewer. I'm going to fry it for another 30 seconds. The wind's blowing today, so that flame is all over the place. I'm going to fry it for another 30 seconds. Put my skewer through, remove it, and place it on a sheet pan that has paper towels on it. Okay, very simple. I didn't get burned. The cannolis are cooked evenly, and we're just going to continue to do that. Very nice. This is the technique, and technique is everything in cooking. You know, Jacques Pepin wrote a cookbook. It was called La Technique. He didn't write a cookbook called The Recipe because he knows that recipes are recipes. Technique is what's important. Okay, second batch here. They're in about 30 seconds. Just going to take the end of the skewer and turn them and let them fry. Let them finish frying. Takes under a minute. The reason being the temperature is proper and the dough is at the right thickness. So here you go. Kale. We're going to let these cool, go inside. I'm going to tell you how to remove them, and we can stuff them with our cheese and make some cannolis. Excellent. Thank you, Elvie. Okay, we're back in the kitchen. I brought the cannoli shells in, and I want to point out to you how thin and crisp and delicate they are. That is a cannoli shell. That is how it is supposed to be. If I were to put pressure on it, it should crack and crumble in my hand. Okay? I neglected to point out too, I think, when I was putting the dough on there, that I had coated the copper tubes with shortening before the dough was put on there. Okay, so to take them off, what I do is I take a paper towel and I hold the tube with a paper towel, and I'll just pull that tube out, just like that. Okay, these are really, really beautiful. Now, the hole in the end, I put that there because occasionally you might have one that shows a little resistance. I just put that in there and I turn the tube like that. Maybe 2 of them out of 24, I might have to do that. But for the most part, they'll just slide right off in my hand. Okay, so one more time. Put the cannoli on the paper towel. Be gentle with it. Twist the tube, and the tube comes right out. Now what you have is a perfect cannoli shell, really. I think I want to weigh one and see what they weigh. What do you think? They don't weigh an ounce.
Sure.
They don't weigh anything. Ounces, 0.2. 0.20 ounces, so that's not an ounce. 0.20 ounces. The only purpose the cannoli shell serves is to be a vessel to hold that beautiful ricotta cheese that you made. That's all it does. Now, when we fill these shells, I want to point out a cannoli should be eaten within 2 hours of having filled it. Okay, that's when it's best. After that, it could get soggy on you. Just pointing out, real cannolis are stuffed and eaten, okay? When you go to a supermarket at 7 in the morning, there's cannolis in the case, and you come back at 3 in the afternoon and there's the same cannolis, not a good cannoli. But their shells, of course, are coming out of a cardboard box and they're generally thicker, so they have a little bit more shelf life. But if you go to a real good Italian bakery, Cafe Poulier in Yonkers, when I was a kid, the case is filled with cannolis, but there's a line going out the door and they're just constantly stuffing them and people are buying them. Okay, so let's put the filling in the shell and I'll show you how to stuff them. And to the best part about making cannolis, the absolute best part is giving them away, which is what Elby's gonna do when we're finished. We have neighbors on either side, we have friends around town. I've made thousands of cannolis. I probably, for every 50 cannolis I make, I eat one, okay? Because the pleasure in making excellent food is sharing it. And that's also part of Italian culture. So we're gonna share these when we're done, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, it's time to fill the cannolis. And what I have in my hand is a plastic pastry bag that has the filling in. I made the mistake of leaving it in the refrigerator too long, so it gets a little hard. The filling is best piped at room temperature. So what I've been doing is just running my hands over the outside of the bag, trying to warm it up a little bit. But anyway, the shells from the recipe that we made today, I made 32 shells, and which was spot on as far as what we normally do. I have some scraps left over and they're in the refrigerator. What I like to do is process all of them, and what I have in the freezer are cannoli shells. Okay, so I just keep stockpiling them as leftovers, and there'll come a time when I could just make my ricotta filling and stuff those. But anyway, you don't have to make the cannolis all in one day. These shells are fine at room temperature. You can make them a few days ahead of time and leave them and stuff them as you need them, because you're not going to get soggy with no ricotta filling in it.
Unless it's humid.
Unless it's humid. Unless it's humid. And right now it's humid.
It's humid.
So, all right. So for the shell, I take it. And I'll do both ends. And that's it. That easy. And it's way easier when the filling is at the proper temperature. But we'll just fill these like this. And these are going next door to our neighbor Eileen. And then up the hill, Mr. Matheson's gonna have a few for dessert tonight. And the nice thing about the cannoli is I'm only stuffing enough now that I'm gonna give away. We'll be going out tonight. I'll stuff a few more and bring them with me for the folks that we're going out with. So how many do we need for next door?
5.
5, there's 4. And here's 5. Beautiful. We finished them with a little 10x or powdered sugar. All these terms change. Just dust the top of them. And Elby's ready to go be the most popular person on Shepherd Avenue. Okay, that's our cannoli video. You know how to make the cheese. You know how to pronounce ricotta, because that's how you say it. Ricotta, recooked. You do not say, well, you say, some people say ricotta, which means you're from New Jersey or within 20 miles of Brooklyn. And I'm not going to correct your pronunciation, because you have so many problems. Your pronunciation is the least of them. But ricotta, if you're going to make it. Okay? Hope everyone enjoys the video, and I hope you enjoy making cannolis. Ciao.